Computers need mice, keyboards, and monitors, and if you want to play games and play games well, those things need to be good. You can't just buy anything. I'm not someone who's tried all the peripherals like some reviewers, but I've tried a few, and as a Kovaaks coach, I've interacted with a lot of people who use a lot of different kinds of gear. So this video is going to be the sum of my experience, as well as aim coaching hundreds of people on a bunch of different gear and their experiences. Since I love aiming so much, let's start with mice. Personally, I run the HSK Pro Ace. It's a very small, ultralight fingertip mouse, 27 grams. Anyone who's ever run this has either said it's the best or worst mouse ever. The main reason people don't like fingertip grip is because they think it's unstable, because when you do it with a large mouse, it is unstable. I'm not saying fingertip is right for you or you'll like it, but until you've tried it with a very light, under 30 grams small mouse for a significant period of time, like 3 weeks, you also won't know if fingertip grip is right for you. You gotta give it a fair chance. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we got 80, 90 plus gram mouse, like the 120 gram G502. Anytime anyone I coach uses one of these and I tell them to try a lighter mouse, they always say they improve. Anytime I'm coaching someone and they say they used to use that kind of mouse, they always improve. Anytime you talk to anyone who tried to use a heavy mouse in an FPS game and went lighter, they will say they improved on the lighter mouse. These mice are just too heavy. But then we got the 50 to 70 gram mice like the Model O, the Model O minus, the Super Light, etc. These are your standard gaming mice mass produced by big gaming companies for all gamers to use. The market right now is way too small for us under 30 gram mouse users for large companies to care about us, so they make mice that are supposed to be good for all grip styles. This is obviously not true. If you try to fingertip a Superlight, it'll feel pretty unstable and your hand will just feel too tense. I've had this experience, as have people I've coached. The thing is, most people don't know this is wrong until they switch mice. That being said, some people run other grips with different size hands and shapes where they feel the Superlight or other mice in this weight class fit them well. Most AIM world records are on a G Pro X Superlight just because Matty Overwatch is built different. So here's my conclusions for mice. Over 80 grams in the trash or League of Legends, if you think there's a difference between the two, I don't. 50 to 70 grams, pretty standard, and a lot of grips in the palm and claw range will be good on these mice. 40 to 20 grams, we get our more relaxed claw grips, our fingertip grips, and I personally think this range is ideal, but what matters most is you liking what you use. If The Rock and Kevin Hart picked up gaming, I would not expect people with that different of hand sizes and all those things to enjoy the same mouse. Before I get into mouse pads, a part of setup most people don't think about is their internet. To perform well, you need good ping, and upgrading your internet is going to cost you money. No ping helps your internet do better with what you have, which is why they are really good and fitting sponsor for this video. When you make an input, that input gets put in a file and sent to the server, which is far away from your computer. If it has to go across the Atlantic, there's 17 different cables it could ride on. If it's going across the US, there's a lot of different cables that file could ride on. Different cables can carry different volumes of data, and they do it at different speeds, just like a highway carrying cars. And if you've ever been on a highway, Google Maps might have found a weird route that takes you through back roads no one's on to get you home 10 minutes faster. No ping is like that for internet. The only difference is no ping has a lot more cables to choose from than Google Maps has highways to choose from. So go to no ping, buy no ping, get faster internet. Mouse pads are almost essential. The reason I only say almost is because I think I've had 1 or 2 students who've played without mouse pads, and if you have a really smooth desk, some people enjoy this. One of those students I'm pretty sure even reached Immortal 3 and was scrimming tier 2 in Valorant. Glass pads and hard pads are a great option for people who don't have a smooth desk, but want the smooth, low friction feel of playing without a mouse pad. In general, these are better for tracking games and tracking scenarios, but I've worked with some Valorant players who've loved low friction pads and reached very high ranks, like #1 rank Radiant in North America. They offer less resistance when starting micro adjustments and just make tracking a lot easier. Mouse pads can also have more friction. This is just the opposite end of the spectrum. A lot of people like these as it makes stopping power easier, and allowing you to flick a lot faster and operate better on lower sensitivities. From my experience as a coach, honestly, the only way to decide is to try both and see which one you like better. Some people will use different pads for different games and different scenarios, so keep in mind you don't have to stick with one. If you want to play Skypad in Apex and Kovaak's signature mouse pad in Valorant, do that. One thing I will say is if you're on a hard pad and you feel like you're struggling with stopping your flicks, consider a cloth pad. If you're on a cloth pad and you feel like making micros, making small adjustments, and there's a lot of friction preventing you from moving the mouse you want to move it, try a hard pad. And if you feel like you struggle with both, you're just bad at aiming and you need to practice. Mousepad size is also pretty important. A lot of people start on an 8x11 inch mousepad, which is terrible and should only be used for office work. Personally, I've enjoyed very large mousepads so that I never run out of space, but if you feel like your pad is too small for how you play and you constantly reset, buy a larger pad. A lot of high quality mouse pads I've found ironically will cap their size relatively small. For hard pads this makes sense. It'll probably cost a fortune to ship a piece of tempered glass across the country when it's the size of a flat screen, but for soft pads you can just roll them up. I don't understand why a company would cap their mouse pad at 15 by 19 inches, which in my opinion is a waste of potential. It's also really easy to run out of mousepad space by hitting your keyboard. If you get a smaller keyboard, this becomes a non-issue. A lot of people tell me they keep hitting their keyboard, and then once they get a smaller keyboard, no longer is it a smaller issue, but it's a complete non-issue. Personally, I use this half keyboard for when I play, but as long as it doesn't have a whole number area and a bunch of extra space like a 60% keyboard, you're probably fine. Also, make sure you run a mechanical keyboard, not a membrane keyboard, which basically means the buttons click when you push them down rather than being really soft and low resistance. Monitors are also important because you need to see things. For monitors, the more pixels the better, the more hertz the better. Hertz are just the refresh rate of your monitor, basically how many frames per second can you actually see. So 999 FPS, but 30 Hz monitor, you're only seeing 30 frames every second. Another thing to note about hertz is the more you jump, the less significant each jump actually becomes. 30 to 60 hertz is a bigger jump than 60 to 144, which will be a bigger jump than 144 to infinity. Also keep in mind monitors have latency, lag, and response time, which are all the same thing and just mean the delay between the signal being sent and you seeing it. Most gamers' reaction times tend to vary between 150 and 250 milliseconds because gamers are younger than the average population. Adding an extra 10 milliseconds to your reaction time for no reason is bad, so buy monitors with a faster response time. If it's not listed on the product and you can't find it, assume it's a pretty slow response time. Monitors have a bunch of other settings and features that I'm not going to go into for two reasons. One, they're complicated. Two, I don't know all of them. Monitor stands, however, are really cool because you can put your monitor at eye level and not have to look down, or put your monitor at any other height you want it at. So, good mouse, keyboard, monitor, mousepad, and those are the four main peripherals for FPS gaming. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more.